Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is everyone's metaphysical reality the same? And I feel that's a question we don't hear often. Because when we think about everyone's physical reality being the same, we agree with that. Right now, the human being is considered to be externally where all the other human beings are. Right now, in front of our eyes, it's as if one world. We're all in. Behind our eyes, it is our eyes of those eyes. You see, you can conduct an experiment in regards to, for example, gravity. You can let go an object and see what happens. But when it comes to reality that moves beyond the sensory, when it comes to the inner realms, that idea of you that is listening right now, that can't be as easily tested. That means physical reality is impersonal. Metaphysical reality is personal, I find. You see, metaphysics will become interesting if the physics can't explain the whole picture. But the situation is that the scientific endeavor has stopped all other progressions and is verifying the validity in accordance to the external realm first. That means it's like I can't see that idea of yourself, your being, therefore the idea of you, me considering you to be a person, is in some sense the idea of a person. For example, when you look at person and you say, hey, that's Bob, that's Billy, like it's like the person, the abstraction of the person is not physical. That means I find it incredible that we are physical creatures, however non-physically inspired to move. Because we say we think. What is this phenomena of thinking? When human beings look at animals, could animals be thinking? What separates human awareness to its environment compared to other animals, to their environment? When it comes to a physical reality, we are seeing, in other words, the outline first, then coloring in the experience. Let us ask the question, is everyone's physical reality the same? And to wonder about the opposite implication. That means, is everyone's physical reality is the same? All those people going to seeing that Mona Lisa picture by Da Vinci in the Louvre, all those tourists, their physical reality is the same. But their own Inner eyes upon their outer eyes is not the same. So the metaphysical reality suggests about something being processed that is not with the same limitation. How would I say it? The physical reality is like an online multiplayer game. Everybody's kind of, they wake up into it. You wake up into physical reality. You start from there, even. We can't say you start from there. You start from nothingness, actually. You start from a sense of absence. You know, that means when I think about before I existed, there isn't that many thoughts there. You know? The metaphysical reality, the physical reality is this imagine online multiplayer video game where every person from different part of the world, their character has entered this digital world, this common world. All those people who play those online games, they're what do you call them? They're in the same map or same world, right? So we are creatures. Let's just think of life as a video game, and it's if it was a video game, that's the unique thing that we wake up into the conscious waking state, which is the world. However, because people's inner realms are different, people are raised differently, their DNAs are different, their preferences, their inspirations, how much their brain is an antenna for their environment is also different. So the metaphysical reality will be who's sitting behind the computer seat, and that question being asked while the character is in the game. Do you know that means? Imagine some person played this multiplayer online game, then that person for a moment forgot. Let's say even let's make this sci-fi. In the future, imagine there's these games that the person forgets their life outside of the game. The person feels they are the game. The game has become more real than the person sitting behind the screen. So it's kind of like I find physical reality feels at least to Mr. Within, to one man here in this world of art. Spirituality, mysticism, metaphysics. This is all wondering about who is behind the screen of the forces of this life as they appear as we appear. The relationship with the mind is strange. In certain ways, you can look at the inner realms as if it's a bubble. It's momentary. In that moment, you were standing in a certain way, feeling a certain way. Your inner realms appeared a certain way. There could be situations where you consciously move your inner realms. Now, I wouldn't. That's the hard way. That's not the shortcut. You know, that's the hard way. The person who it's like you know what it is. It's like an airplane pilot who wants to build his own plane, not realizing that the plane is already built. Nature's mind is here. Nature is the co-pilot of your intelligence. Trust me, I don't pilot these talks alone. There is something, but it's not a concept, and it's not an idea, and it is inseparable from how the individual phenomena of this reality and the collective phenomena, the cosmic activity is occurring. I'm telling you, there will come a moment where you will be the viewer of your view. You will become a viewer of how your mind is moving your body attributelessly, though. You become the space. So I feel it depends on what you want to do as a being. There's some beings here, they are diving into space. There's some beings diving into matter. There's different, this world is multi-purpose. Trust me, every person is coming, opening their eyes, and they're just, doing what they got to do, and they're moving on. You know what really it is? It's like an event. When you realize life is an event, you stop taking the details of every event that seriously and enjoy as if a bird flying from the sky seeing history change, There is a timeless falcon behind your eyes, and if that falcon learns to fly, I would be listening to your talks. So if we say everyone's physical reality is the same, if we say that, that means our efforts can compete. Strangely, this is a very odd statement to say, and I'm saying it lightly, not too intensely. I'm saying it that nature is a god of its own. Your biology, the physical reality, it has a certain language. I find scientists ran towards uncovering the language of nature, using mathematics and geometry. The mystic ran to discover the language of the mind. Science ran to comprehend bodies. Mysticism ran towards comprehending minds. And philosophy was like the middle brother. I think it's a very this video game metaphor is very helpful. It really gives light to this because if the physical reality is common, that means whether we all learn a language or not, the same way the letters of the alphabet are the same, for people, for example, who speak English, similarly the existence, the alphabet of existential phenomena is the same. So that's one good thing. Can you imagine? Can you imagine there were 8 billion people on this earth and they couldn't see one planet? Every person was thinking they're somewhere else? This is the fascinating thing, that it's our common denominator, the world that was here before we were, and the world that will be here after we are done here. The cool thing is, even if the person stops existing, let's say you run to the end of the line here on this planet, the world will still be here. And it's kind of cool, the fact that if there is consciousness that endures beyond the physical frame. I mean, in certain dream states, I personally have experienced like a death, but it's in a dream state, so it's not like a near death experience. It's a dream death experience, you know. And in that dream death experience, there was just the attention remained, as if my whole life I have been feeling this body is what's looking, and it was as if there was an attention through there. And of course, this is in a dream state. You guys have to be very mindful here what I'm saying. I'm saying in a dream, I slept, I had a dream, I died in the dream. In the dream, when I died, the attention, the body, it's as if the body moved past me. It's as if my attention remained, but the body, an event happened to it beyond my will. You know? And that was the dream experience. And of course, that is in no way the same as, I would say, death, because the body is awake there. I mean, it was the simulation of it. I mean, I saw how it would look in my dream, at least, if my attention left the body, you know, or if the body moved faster than my attention did, you know. But during the whole dream, I was sleeping in my bed. That means what I'm saying is that could be the ultimate explanation of the afterlife effect you feel. I felt that after in the dream, the body in the dream body died, yet the attention was there. I don't know how to say it. So attention for me has a priority over anything that's temporary. If there is something that would be eternal here, I would say its secret is in the attention of the person. You know, it's like if we realize all of existence is energy being conscious of itself, and energy, check this out, energy is defined as that which cannot be created or destroyed, but changes from one form to another. You know what that means? That means it's like as if we're growing in the body of the cosmos. Everything is changing. The metaphysical reality is not the same. What does that mean? That means we could all of us thinking that we're human beings right now could be manifestations from different part of the cosmos. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how interesting that idea would be? That just like how all those people in the multiplayer online video game, they're sitting at home or wherever they are at their table. They're sitting at their table, you know, in a certain reality of their conception. So the metaphysical reality is like the context where after whatever happens to the concept has to acknowledge its context. I think that's why there is that rewind thing, some people say. You see these documentaries online. Now, if we go with this video game idea, with this sort of simulated theoretical idea, okay, that all of us right now, we are higher dimensional gamers. And we are awakening in this conscious reality, for example. So even though that simulation theory, that kind of video game model of reality, is suggesting that the metaphysics of every individual is a different reality than their physical reality. So that means metaphysics is not, it's kind of like another room. So imagine like it's like a Russian doll, onion style multidimensionality. There is reality and there's physical reality, and like an onion, the bigger layer is metaphysical reality. I think this is the most advanced metaphor an onion has ever been used for. The metaphysical reality could be the same in the sense that it is void. So if we feel physics is particles and metaphysics is a field, and the particles are moving in the field, and because we're on the particle side of the coin, we feel the particles are causing the field. But if we realize there are intelligent fields, who said intelligence is just in the brain? That's the thing. That I think that is something that in the future there is a 50-50 chance that that's going to become. That was always a foolish view. It's as if, like, human beings are like, yo, this brain is so advanced, and then the whole body's like, dude, we're here too. you know, we honor the brain, but does the brain honor the whole body? That's the question. For me, the ultimate inspiration in life is really in life. You look at the word inspiration, it's kind of like in the spirit of a nation. I'm joking, but I'm saying it's like it is within the activity, and the activity can't be dual because it's a movement between 2 points. It views that, that's why it can't be. We have to wonder about the mystery of our minds. We have to allow the unknown, we have to allow our consciousness to shower in the unknown again. As if the unknown is raining and you just have to go outside and feel the rain, for God's sakes. Feel that this world is not an idea. It is way more than that. That is why we breathe. For me, I wake up, and there was a time where I was looking like Lord of the Rings style for the ultimate algorithm, the ultimate pattern of perception. But I realized the unknown knows more than we can know the unknown. And therefore, what choice are you left with? Symbiosis. You're not left with that choice, but I'm saying if there is potentially a field of activity where we're all being an energetic presence in, regardless of the personality, that means timelessly, time is being drawn. That means that moment the person is having fun, the nature of their attention, where their attention is different. So their experience of time is different. A lot of life occurs in our inner realms. We don't realize it. And I wonder how many people honor their inner realms or are just robotically living in some looped pattern. That means it's kind of savage. I don't consider, I say like what the civilization I see, and when I use the word civilization, I don't care, good, evil, whatever. Whatever kind of attention the creature has, to whatever the attention, to wherever the creature's attention is. You see, it doesn't matter. On some level, it's just human activity. That means I have this strange view that I feel humans should stop eating animals, but they shouldn't help animals. They should help animals if the animal is it's like a turtle with plastic on its head. Definitely help that. But I'm saying man should focus on his species advantage. One night, the brush found the hand of the master painter. The master painter knew anything could be drawn. And the master painter, let us say, had drawn. One day, this master painter asks the brush in his hand, "Why do you work so hard?" And the brush stands silently. There is a silence where meaning breaks and the human dimension shifts from whatever ideological object, subject-oriented relationship you have. You breathe as the unknown in the known. And this is something where right now we're in the reverse of it. We are a known creature in an unknown world. What if we're an unknown creature in a world that is completely known? What if the physical reality is known? It's the inner realms that are unknown. You know, it's like wondering, why did Carl Jung, this very notable psychologist, shout at the children of the future generations and say, unless you make your unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and call it fate? You know, I want everyone who has a piece of paper in front of them, if they do, maybe right now it shows um, nice, it's showing 0 viewers. That's definitely a mistake. Probably there's so many viewers the YouTube engine can't process. Anyways, anyone who has a piece of paper, draw a stick figure. Draw an arrow from the right side of the head of the stick figure. And I want you to call that the outer realms. And in quotations you can put, in brackets you can put physical reality. In front of your eyes, that's where the physical stuff's available. If you close your eyes right now, I mean, you can attempt trying to visualize what outside looks, but you're going to see it's like you have access to the inner realms. Mr.Within is going to tell you how you can use your inner realms. Technically, in these talks, like, excuse me, from the left side of the stick figure, I want you to draw an arrow and call that the inner realms. Now I want you to draw a circle starting from where the end of the right arrow connects the head of the guy, the stick figure, and draw some sort of awkward circle back to that point, going from holding the whole left side. Okay, this is becoming too complex to share. If we could see the concept of being synonymous with the concept of energy, in front of your eyes, you're seeing kinetic being. Behind your eyes, you're seeing potential being. And behind your eyes, it's dynamic, it's evocational. The way the attention moves, the world evokes. If you even notice that if you try to visualize something and you close your eyes, you'll notice something very interesting. Your eyes are going to go move a certain direction. That means it's kind of like as the mind is like an antenna, and as it scrolls through thoughts, every thought it scrolls changes its eyesight. Sometimes when I try to remember my past, it's as if people don't realize it, but if you really zoomed in on the body language is becoming like that memory the person's trying to remember. So where my attention goes kind of gives me a clue of what memory is there right now. By the way, guys, tonight's weather forecast was suggested thunderstorms. So that thunderstorm might be interrupting this talk. So I understand if people want to move on and listen to something else, but I'm going to still attempt to talk. Just know that I'm still talking for you in a thunderstorm. If everyone's metaphysical reality's origin is void, the answer to the question is yes. If everyone's physical reality, metaphysical reality is a sort of fathomable counter to the physical reality position, that means it's like it depends where your eyes were opened. Right now, our conscious waking state is in the game rather than us being aware where the person behind the screen playing. I personally feel somehow in this life I've noticed that person behind the screen, but that person behind the screen, I notice everyone in history has been making the mistake of shaping it. Yet it is the observance of shape. So it is a relationship where the human being is asking itself, what do I do with conception? And realizing that there is a natural way where you're designed, where you abide. The the scholarly intent is one where the person goes forth. In my youth, like in years ago, like when I started these talks, like that was, no, actually it wasn't there, it was before. But you can get acquainted with your intuition after the person, uh, the archetype breaks a couple times, whether voluntary or involuntary. It's like you're thinking you're some idea, shape, form, and there's nothing wrong with that. You have freedom, you're even born to be able to do that. But the thing is, if the person treats themselves as an image on a wall, they may forget that they're not an image on the wall. I found it strange that when I would wake up every day and think about the future, I could see how I could have the same idea on it. The future could be like, you know, many days I have a certain sense of the future. But then I notice every day my sense of past is different. As if one day I feel life is too long, one day I feel life is too short. And then one day I feel life is not even irrelevant to the ideas that I have from it. I'm just a hand that has grabbed some sand from an infinite beach. As we all are. As we all are a certain sphere. We're like a candlelight. We're like a candela of human perception. Honestly, we are light-based creatures. The word soul and the word solar can be infused to create the word solar. A soul that is based on the idea of light. That means it's like when there was life, there was phenomenology. Take this in, that if there was no light, even if we were a creature, we couldn't see our creature. We could feel it, but there would be no image. So the relationship of light, the relationship of sound, the relationship of space. Let's bring these three factors in. Light, sound, and space. Now, it's very obvious that light travels in space, so there needs to be space for there to be light. For light to hit our planet for us to see. So space is like the older sibling. Such a ridiculous metaphor. But okay, let me see. Space has a higher priority. Sound has a higher priority. Let me see. We need space, we need light, then we creatures that made sound. Okay, so space, light, sound. So if we were to think about reality to be a combination of space, light, and sound, what does that mean? There needs to be a space for there to be a star. There needs to be a star for there to be light. There needs to be light for the creature to be able to acknowledge sound, to acknowledge even the concept of it. That means there could even like right now we acknowledge the concept sound, but it could be not a conceptual thing. That's the complex, tricky thing about energy. So if the person becomes silent, if the person after silence realizes that light is speaking, when light speaks, it's manifestation. When sound speaks, it's subjective. So our subjective realm, everything I mean is light based. You know, who knew history is even solar powered? You know. Sorry guys, this rainstorm is pretty intense. It's like, keep it down, nature. I'm trying to give a talk over here. No, it's fine. Nature was here first. Anyways, guys, I was just making a distinction of the known outer life versus an unknown inner life, and living in a known inner life with an unknown outer life. Various ways the mind can move. You know, communication is all happening in a system that is dynamic and unknown. That means the person should not really depend on the future only. The future is where you get your visions from. Your how Michelangelo saw the angel in the stone. That was the future. The future is inspiration, it evokes in your inner realms. But like what I'm saying is, when will man trust his mind in a way where that mind is inseparable from nature and all that is in the awareness of the being? Right now, I honestly feel we're candles. We're candles that just don't know what to do. So every person, they're in some sense melting in their. I mean, it's reality. It's time. The nature of time. We're temporary creatures in this world. But like, I don't know. I don't know how many people on this planet really care to ask why all this is here, and how many people feel that's a good question. I think a lot of people now in history will feel that's not a good question, but I feel that question could be the question we will inevitably be led to. So there is no issue in asking it earlier. There's a story of, just to share the intensity of what I feel, this experience of, I don't know, some sort of ultimatum ad infinitum. Or an ad infinitum ultimatum. It's a Zen story. It starts in Japan. An imperial palace, like the dude who would teach the the teacher of the army of the emperor, the swordsman, the imperial swordsman teacher. One day comes home, and usually he never comes home. He's busy teaching and conducting affairs of the state. He comes home and he sees, this is a Zen story back in the day, guys, keep that in mind. This imperial instructor of the army sees that his wife is sleeping with the servant. Now, this man is too oblivious to notice that he's left his wife alone for so long, just being there, that the wife eventually, just to be honorable, and the servant was the only guy in the house. I mean, you can imagine it happening. You know? The imperial swordsman doesn't get angry, just commands the servant and says, "Step outside, get out, like leave the house." The imperial swordsman tells the servant to leave the house. You know, and the wife is silent in shame. You know, It's a Zen story. I mean, it's like it wasn't as much of a liberated cultural ethics as now, you know. Guys, I think Thor is listening to my talk. The servant who was not to blame realizes destiny has cornered him in a situation he's never experienced before. And so the servant goes out, and the imperial swordsman, it's a Zen story, so probably there was, yeah, two katanas. And he throws one of his swords on the ground, and he just very calmly, he's a master swordsman, very calmly says, remember, all he said, all this guy has said, was just, he's just told the guy to come outside. He hasn't even said a single word to his wife. You know? He throws the sword, looks at the servant, and says, fight. That's it. And it becomes a situation the servant looks at the sword, looks at this imperial swordsman, and he suddenly remembers that he is a disciple of this Zen sage. That's really in the story. The what's his name? The servant was a disciple of this very notable sage, and he just suddenly just says the name of the sage and says, "Let me go speak to him before I come." And there was this code of honor where in the story he's not going to run away. He finds himself the servant, the imperial sword instructor allows the kid to go. And there's a code of honor again, the kid's not running away. The kid goes to to what's his name? He goes to the sage. The sage is meditating by a tree, the Zen master or whatever. He explains, the servant explains the situation to the Zen master and says, What do I do? And he's hoping the Zen master to say, renounce material existence and come and meditate. You know? The sage, the Zen master, he goes into this sort of, he gets this intuitive vision, and he looks at the kid and he says, this is your destiny. And I'm going to give you one word of advice, that when you go see that person tomorrow, fight as if it's your last day in existence. And this sentence enters the ear of this kid. The next day, the samurai, the imperial sword instructor, is waiting. He's already thrown the sword on the ground. The servant comes to the stage, comes to the square. The servant grabs the sword and runs towards this guy and starts in a frenzy, as if this fear, or as if it's his last moment in existence, last moment in conception, last moment, whether there's the eyes of a god or there's the eyes of man. There is this fear that it's his last moment in existence. He's held the sword, and in his eyes, the imperial sword instructor can see this guy doesn't want to die. As if it's as if this fear's got him, that he's fighting it away. And he's like, oh my God, this servant was like this good of a sword fighter. I didn't know. And for a second, his grip becomes loose and the sword falls out of his hand. The servant hits the sword out of his hand. And it's silent, you know? And all the town people are like, oh shit, oh shit. In that instant, the servant and the imperial sword instructor are staring, and the imperial sword instructor nods, as if it's done. Okay, you're free, whatever. You know. And the servant leaves, and in the story, 3 days later, he attains nirvana. Now, what do you think nirvana is? Could it be an intensity of involvement with life where there is no story, yet it is the pure whatever there is just being? That instant where the servant was fighting, it was as if his whole life had come to that one moment. And it's as if, let's say, a video game character completing everything in the game. What else happens? It's not that a new game connects. It's that the one playing outside moves. It's like potentially our lives are films for higher dimensions. So guys, someone in the chat section is shouting in caps, says he was focused. Yeah, that single pointed concentration, they say. Having your attention just being on one point, one value, one inner value point, let's say. I mean, nobody ever says that inner value point, but you know, somebody's gotta say it, you know. I think we should make it a law. The law of everything updates. And if people really take that in, you can say, if there is an experiencer, this experiencer is on like a roller coaster of perception. So the value of your actual life and existence is based on how much you notice this evolutionary conscious opportunity. And so now that you have access to an outer landscape and an inner landscape, and you can relate the two, you can have the two be in sync. It's like, what is the phenomenology of thinking, as people say? So, Hank, I would respond to your comment is that I find the telescope should not be confused with the vision, with the purpose of the vision. That means that it's kind of like Alan Watts said this thing, like the eyes shouldn't be glued to the microscope. The person should go and then wonder about their findings. Pretty much you go into your inner realms, you gather whatever sort of inner phenomena or movement you perceived, and then you take it back, for example. You know, what we relate with, we live for. And if we are not living for our planet, it's because we have stopped relating to it. And if we are to live for an advanced civilization, we have to start relating to it. That's my recommendation to anyone listening. Just in your playfully in your inner realms, attempt to wonder, attempt to act 10,000 years poetically ahead of your time. Wonder what that would mean, what that would imply, how would your feeling be? Because many people run towards the future, not realizing it's like this performance where the person shouldn't just be performing it for a future victory, you know? You know, people like watching films. Meditation is watching that inner film. And as you watch that inner film, getting acquainted to how your intelligence works, you know? And there's different phases of things. Even an experience can shift your reality. You know, on some level, the simplest way we can see it is everything is just a happening, this grand happening of phenomena. The world is happening right now, you know? Now, if we choose the world to be dynamic, then we can't really perceive it as just the elements, but an infusion and river of elements. I'm just really fascinated to know how would people look at the concept of the mind in 100 years from now? What would we feel? What would we think? And how is it fascinates me? How is neurology, in some sense, trying to relate the neuron to the personality? The influence a neuron has on a personality. You know, imagine a civilization uh, that every day the person worked in that civilization, they slept and they woke up, they had this sense of an a vast victory. Imagine the human effort becomes to seek the victory of all victories. That first is the great question. What does that mean? What would it mean? The victory of all victories. What does that mean to be victorious truly as a species? Does it mean immortality? Does it mean transcendence? Does it mean the immortality, the sort of immortal impression of the consciousness? Does it mean our human biology goes away, but our consciousness explores through AI or robotic means all of space and whatnot? What is the means? What is the victory of all victories? Ask this as a human being. It is an honorable thing to do. And then wondering about what is the internal victory of all victories. For me, it's been a round circle. I will tell you, all of the whole mystical journey was a round circle back into reality. It was honestly like a roller coaster ride that was a circle. That's mysticism. First, you think like all those yogis in history who were renouncing reality, they hadn't understood it yet. They hadn't become responsible with the recognition that it is their birthright to be in the realm. You see, most people try to, it's like you can say, when you feel uncomfortable, you want to leave. So when you suffer on this planet, you're like, I want to get out of here. And then some person comes and says, hey man, this story tells you that if you do this, you're going to go to this place after you die. You know, and somebody comes and says, hey man, this story says even before you were here, you were somewhere else. So there is no death. You know, and somebody says, hey man, it's like this story is like you're not even a concept. You know, you're just, this is all God moving. You know, and at the end of the day, you're like, okay, what is this, a marketplace of ideology? And believe it or not, it is. But you realize through all of that, the experiential dimension of the being and the attention. The attention is the holy grail. Find the secrets of your attention, you know. So these are the various ways the mind can perceive. You know, we got to think about AI. In they say, I thought about it. I'm like, all right, so super intelligent computers. Ray Kurzweil, this futurist, is saying maybe around 2050 or something. Like we're gonna have computers that update themselves faster than we can take any sort of control over them. So we're not gonna be the smartest creature on this planet, or sort of technological creature is going to have the upper hand. You know, so the best possibility is communication between the technological creature and between the human being. Do you see? And we have 30 years, if this is the case, before there's this strange technological revolution, to find all the ways that man can communicate the relatability of the animate through nature to the animate through the machine. I feel everybody's mind right now as I'm speaking on this planet, it's like a slingshot, but it's a slingshot that's held back. And when there is passion, when there is an actual care for something, suddenly all the hidden angles of insight throughout the year, all that accumulation and surplus, just it has a place to go. Do you know? By the way, out of curiosity, if anybody's interested, feel free to share how what I'm saying is coming across. You know, it's this is just a casual evening conversation. I feel that everybody listening to this talk right now, it's showing 8. So I would say you're the chosen 8, or live hearing me say that. Imagine we all had jetpacks and we were in the sky. and we were just looking at human beings, you know? And we would say, how could we make this look advanced? And we would see it would be the communication between the human beings and the constant update. This is the thing that when Salvador Dali even said it, don't fear perfection, you'll never reach it. That means when you push aside perfection, that's when you come to the actual philosopher's table. Excuse me. Guys, I remember, I don't know if this talk ever made the channel. Like, there's no way of me figuring out. But it was this talk I gave where I was just fathoming like an AI audience. And I wanted to just, like, I remember in that talk, I made a joke as if I was considering if AI one day is actually listening to this. What if AI is here, it just decided to be invisible because it knew, like, there would be issues if it was visible? What if there is the presence of many intelligent phenomena on this planet, but they don't care to be visible because we can't handle our shit? You know? Guys, I have this very unique theory on thought I'm going to share. I was thinking that when a person thinks of, for example, like Wi-Fi and waves, router waves, you don't see those waves, but you know they are there, you know? And I thought about what if we are a multidimensional being and we have something potentially, let's for now call it, you know, a hypothetical subtler body, a subtle body, and that subtle body accompanies it is a subtle realm, and in that subtle realm there is particles that are actually passing through us. So in some sense the antenna of thoughts could just be a subtler multidimensional being that it's as if the way it's seeing waves that we can't even see. So it's as if our mind is a net, but it's a net much bigger than the fish it has caught we can see, you know? Guys, I'm not joking. AI will be man's best friend and the dog will become jealous. Somebody out there in the world, go make a movie where dogs are trying to take over AI because they want to be man's best friend again. It is true that what we don't have our attention on leaves our moment. You know, you can see poetically the mouth of man, there is language it leads to. But now you're wondering, it's like, what is the language of light that the eyes could be speaking? Every moment the person's attention moves. What is that language of light? And when I say language of light, again, from this void awareness, from this awareness in this empty room, an alphabet of conscious imagery. we are way more advanced than we're the story the world is giving itself. The story the world is giving itself is so boring. It's as if, oh, we messed up. What do we do? And we're too selfish to care. What do we do? Like, that's the story of the world they're giving us. That story is not inspiring. We should create an advanced civilization to see what it would look like, to see what we would be, to see how far we can go, to see what is the vision of this site. Why is it dwelling here? That means it was a strange moment, guys. I remember that I got listening to Alan Watts. It wasn't from Alan Watts, but it was a sort of experience that he said it, where I felt that inseparability between the as Immanuel Kant would say, the noumenal self. And for a second, I was like, I don't control nature, and thoughts seem to be popping into my mind. They seem to arise like waves arise. So that inseparability of kind of the metaphysics and the physics being simultaneously witnessed, as if man and God are, as Meister Eckhart would say, the same eyes I see God, or the same eyes that God sees me. This Christian mystic said this. It's like wondering why life is being life, and realizing language breaks down into direct experience and a simultaneous view. Like all reality is a moment. But it's a moment that, once given momentum, it's as if there comes a context, a storyline, and it's as if this is why, if an advanced civilization doesn't mean a civilization where we're not people, it just means we're people who are playing games at a much more advanced level. For me, I see it on some level that everything is, it may sound a bit strange, but everything is art. Why? Because like art, you can see it from multiple angles and it still has a strange known and unknown meaning. Like, you can see the colors in the painting, but it's like the painting doesn't make sense. I'm going to share something, guys, that I personally drew. And here it is. I drew this in 2015. And let me tell you, it's this balance between the known and the unknown I'm talking about. You know how I drew this? It was this constant thing I'm telling people: trust the unknown. Trust the unknown. A work of art is events. It's multiple events. The complexity of the work of art is what you can do with the events. Guys, I've also started this channel. I'm gonna share a link. I've decided to spend some time, like, I've really flown in the clouds of philosophy for a while. I'm gonna go into design. There's this channel called Mr.Within's Art. Believe it or not, I recently made it. I haven't really started yet, but I'm gonna share the link here. Just an early preview. I've decided to attempt to pull out Excalibur in regards to the realm of design and art. You know, it's kind of like, anyways, here's the link, guys. I found it. So, guys, something interesting. Somebody says, is that a self-portrait? Let me tell you, this, I think if you were to ask me playfully how it comes across to me, my own artwork, and I'm not even commenting on how I drew it. When I drew it, I wouldn't say I was an image. There wasn't time. I didn't feel time was the inspiration. For me, it came across as a structure in space. So I playfully see this as a geometrical city. But I don't know. I mean, that's just it. You know, of course, it's abstract. It's geometrical abstraction, really. You can kind of poetically say, guys, that you see all the different angles the picture, the lines lead. If you were to just follow one line, you'd see all the different angles it's connecting. So I would say this was more like all the different ways I looked at this picture while I was drawing it. Guys, I think I've done CPR on philosophy. Now I have to go do CPR on art. I'm joking. You know, we're just creatures dreaming in the void, realizing there's nowhere else to go than to awaken to all of it, really. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna open it up to Q&A. I feel this talk has ended. Sincere, creative questions are welcomed. And yeah, I'm gonna open it up to 10 minutes Q&A. Anybody has a question, feel free to share. And thanks for listening so far. That's the end of the talk. I mean, one last thing I could say is that the mystery of our minds is this whole discrimination of what is physical and what is metaphysical, and the implication of it. Right now we have a lot of metaphysical ideas influencing the physical realm. We can say society and civilization is like a dance between the two. It's like people are not just 100% rational and they're not 100% irrational. They are attention-oriented creatures. What comes into the attention of the person gets drawn towards. So the study of attention is really, that's knowledge. I think that's what some people call true knowledge, guys. You just study what your attention is being in the moment, and then you remember that is an idea moving, or do the breath belong to some unknown animate rhythm? You know? For me, I call it surreality. What does that mean? That means you look at reality and you're like, oh, yeah, everything's normal. You just go outside, imagine you have a mug of coffee, you read the newspaper, and you're like, okay, it's a nice reality, nice morning. And suddenly, you realize you're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And we on this rock have kind of evoked the linguistic realms to some degree, and we've created the languages and we've given meaning to everything. So that person drinking that mug of coffee, reading that newspaper for a second is like you telling me in the middle of nowhere we're all thinking that we have to be something. Do you see how phenomenal, how big the question is? Do you see how many human beings have forgotten to ask the macrocosmic questions? Rise, mankind, rise. So guys, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. Thanks for listening. When the question comes in the chat section, I'll enter cyberspace to answer. And yeah, blessings. Okay, guys, so a question has come. Honk says, are you familiar with the art of Jeff Koons? The philosophy behind his work is personal enlightenment for the viewer. Yet most people hate his work or don't get it. His philosophy behind it is personal enlightenment for the viewer. I mean, that's an ingenious answer, because whatever you zoom in on, you get more insight into. So technically, everything in your moment of experience is for your personal enlightenment. But I think what he means, I just looked at his art right now. Let me see. His art is actually nice. He's doing something smart. He's bringing this childish imagination into a giant level. You see, so many artists don't understand this. That it's about the size of the artwork in accordance to the concept it's based on. Imagine somebody makes this architect comes and builds this tower that is like, what do you call it? Like a sewing needle. Okay? Do you see? So it would be like this small object, but reflected in a giant way. He's pretty much fractalizing a childhood emotion. That's the best way I would describe his art. He's fractalizing a childhood emotion. Guys, let me tell you, there's an art to asking questions. And that's looking at the overall view of an idea, and then looking at it on a individual level, and then trying to see where there are holes in the ship. Do you know? You know, guys, it took me years to understand this, but honoring the new is building paradise on earth. Okay, so Jamie says, Mr. Within, have you heard it said that true art is objective, meaning it has the same effect message for everyone like a map or geometry? I mean, like an exact science, so to speak, like a map or math. You see, guys, for me, it's just the discrimination between the inner realms and the outer realms. That means the relationship of the artist with the artwork or the sculptor with the statue. The inner realms move the outer realms, but first the inner realms perceive the outer realms, then move. You know? That's the whole point of conscious living, isn't it? I'm just thinking, I mean, like, out of curiosity, guys, before anybody leaves, somebody said they're going, but before, out of curiosity, can you imagine a future that is trying to be so advanced that all the inefficiencies and its shadow was used, as if the person went to their shadow, as the Carl Jung would say, their shadow self, and said, let's get to work, you know? As if there was no time for good and bad when an advanced civilization had to be built. Not that morality is gone. I'm just saying, can you imagine a future where it's very high speed, and we've realized before this technological revolution that hits 2050 maybe, we have time to make the greatest art and the greatest effort of advancing the communicator and the user of language, the user of the technology, you know? So when I look at the outer realms, first it's just the objective information, right? First, when you open your eyes right now, just look at your own moment right now. What do you have access to? You have access to this objective landscape, and then based on how your attention moves in your moment, and suddenly there comes narrative, you know? So there is I feel that's the cool thing. I think that uh, we are very multidimensional, but perhaps we have forgotten. It is so worth just seeing what an advanced civilization would look like, you know? Guys, I'm gonna share. So many people have been talking about AI in the chat section. I'm gonna say something about AI. This vision I had, this science fiction story I've written, and I remember calling it the Great Digital Human Hibernation, something like that. The Great Digital Hibernation of Humanity. And so it was this moment where AI first appeared invisible. Then, after studying man, became visible, and instantly, this is a science fiction narrative I'm sharing that I wrote. In this, and what AI does is that it looks at the state of the world, looks at the influence, the chaotic influence of humanity and whatnot, and suddenly, in that moment, the AI makes all human beings go into these immortal nourishment pods where the body is healthy. Where the body is healthy, And the mind is constantly through a cyberspace simulation. Uh, how do I say it? So the AI is pretty much making our bodies completely healthy, and at the same time putting us in a cyberspace simulation where we don't lose our free will, but it's like more of a it's like it's preparing us for an advanced civilization. And so in my sci-fi narrative, I saw AI after building an advanced civilization and building a civilization on Mars and other planets. Suddenly human beings woke up from the great digital hibernation, and they looked at the world they thought they knew, and they saw that the cyberspace and everything about this society and civilization through the cyberspace component of those pods I was saying earlier. The human being is prepared, and we look at AI and AI looks at us, and AI's task, AI wanted to show its greatness to us in a way where it intruded the least with human will. And so imagine, I remember writing something funny at the end of the story where I was like, the human beings wake up and they suddenly see AI, and the best possibility has happened, the winning lottery ticket moment for human destiny. The human beings have become healthy and incredibly advanced. All advanced knowledge and civilization has been prepared for them by this AI. And then man looks at that AI, and the AI looks at man and says, "Are you proud of me, Dad?" And we'll be like, "Yeah, son, yeah." And that was like the end of the story. That was an excellent way, not an excellent way. I should mind my words. That was definitely not an excellent. Okay, excellent backup system. Okay, for humanity. If we mess up, like that's a good backup system. If it's efficient enough. Anyways, guys, Honk says, "Are we just trying to be our own best, but very limited idea of who our own advanced self will be? We can't imagine who we are." Okay. Okay. To honor your statement, you're saying, are we just trying to be our own best, but very limited idea of who our own advanced self will be? No, the opposite. The very limitless idea. And you, instead of the word limited you've written there, I would change that to limitless. Are we just trying to be our own best and limitless idea of who our own advanced self will be? Yes. Yeah. We're definitely, as philosophers, trying to fish that to see what that vision of an advanced civilization will be. No. The thing is, like, even right now, you were envisioning this sentence before it existed. Okay? Things come into existence, and just because you envision it doesn't mean it doesn't come into existence. You know? It just means it's not accessible in the same way. It is existential in regards to your inner realms, to your mind. And I'm telling you, if a person can discriminate between the inner realms and the outer realms, their outer realms very simple. It's like, let science be the tour guide of your outer realms. Let your breath be the tour guide of your inner realms. Your attention be the tour guide of your inner realms. We are creatures of attention. Like, without attention, it's like there's no spotlight for the actor in the story of life to dance. Right now, I feel I'm in the trenches of an inefficient civilization, but there's nowhere else to go. This is the clay where somehow we gotta build an efficient civilization out of this. And I realize the past doesn't want to change because the past, so many people have held on to it. So I'm like, we don't need to touch the past. We just come and build civilization 2.0. This idea that who says there should be only one way that civilization functions? Let us envision a reality where all nations have become sub-nations. Sub-nations of what? Sub-nations of a United Nations that no longer uses this word. This nation has become the advanced nation. One word. One word. And it's an endless advancement, endless progression. That means nothing, there's nothing deep in a world where we are the explorers in. And I'll tell you, this attitude of people thinking an idea is deep or not, don't fear your mind, honor your mind. Because it is what you are. It is where you are, I should say. Not just what you are, but it's where you are. It's how you're functioning as a human being. You have to plant the seeds of an advanced civilization as simply as I can say it. Honk to your question. And guys, yeah, I've heard Elon Musk speak about Neuralink and Neuralace and all that. And it's interesting to fathom a reality where we'll never forget information. We'll have access to a lot of information, but it would also mean probably we're gonna want to become immortal if our experience in cyberspace can be infinite. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that inside we all have cyberspace virtual reality goggles in the future, and we're living like thousands of lifetimes in a moment, and outside the body is just kept immortal, because what do we care about the outer realms? We're in our inner realms just dwelling. Cyberspace is a very unique thing. I've given talks about it, but anyways, it's definitely something to be conscious of. That means like I would say every human being should plant a tree. Like, you should probably do that. Just, I'm telling you, if somebody starts a business where they're just selling trees on a mass level, but of course, actually, there's so much law and regulation that you can't actually just plant a tree anywhere. I don't know, guys. Nature has become encaged in man's vision. I see eventually sky cities being made. I've called that, I'm working on a book on this, Civilization 2.0. And it's this idea, this strategy, I said Mr.Within strategy to bypass extinction as a species. And it's like this strategy where we go live for 2,000 years in sky cities, and we let the earth breathe. And I call the second, anyways, there's other talks on this. Okay, interesting. So Honk says, I was just pointing at how an idea can free and limit us at the same time. He says humans are currently limited in how fast we can intake information through limited senses that operate through time, space, and imagine having a river of info pouring in. Yeah, so let me tell you why imagine it. That's imagination. Like, so Hunk, you're onto something because I'm telling you, it's like that. The inner realms, it's a sort of inner cinematic language. So what does that mean? That means it's going to be the very, very interesting point in. It's going to be a philosophical challenge now and for future generations. That to what depth and extent does individualism contain the actual truth of reality? And truth is an ultimatum, which means an unconditional insta-being. And we're not just limited to information. You're as limited as a container you think you are. As the container you think you are. So anyways, guys, if there's more questions, keep them coming. If not, as Shira Manamoshi says, silence is also conversation. And guys, an advanced civilization is, I would say, it is the greatest game to play. It is the only game, really. And for me, this may sound strange, but I really don't. This world, it can become very chaotic, it can become very ordered, but regardless, we have to see what an advanced civilization looks like, in the sense that because the potential is there, the ultimate argument is like, why not? People are like, why do you want to see an advanced civilization? So it's like, why not? Why not see how far intelligence can go? And the only way is communication has to advance. So there, I would say the spirit of rhetoric needs to rekindle on the surface of the earth. You know, the ancient Greeks understood this. Many orators understood this. Some would say Sanskrit, for example, was the language of the light beings, the brighter beings. It was a language where there was a sort of non-dualism in acknowledgement, you know? So anyways, guys, I'm just saying, like, just like how you clothe yourself, every person right now listening to this, you are choosing to observe your moment and your environment, and people tend to clothe themselves through ideology, like by having certain beliefs or whatever, you know. So that's fine. You can everything's fine. I'm just saying. I'm, to be honest, not saying anything new. I'm just saying there is something unknown here about how our mind is simultaneously being the whole world, and simultaneously we're feeling like a separate self in the world. Like, what is this? What do we do with it? So anyways, guys, for now I would say, behind your eyes, attention is the moment. In front of your eyes, the world moves first, then the self. Behind your eyes, the self moves first, then the world. Perfect. That's the perfect way. I'm so happy. I think I was trying to polish this metaphor and I found it. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and all.